Hi, and welcome to part two of our introduction story. We hope you've already watched part one. So if you haven't, go back and do that so everything makes sense. Um, anyway, I wanted to get this video out much sooner, but we've been really busy here in Spain,
So busy.
just enjoying Spain a lot, enjoying it, everything it has to offer. We recently spent my birthday weekend in Almeria and Cabo de Gata, and we've been busy spending time with our friends here in Spain. And let me just say that the beaches in Cabo de Gata, Almeria are just stunning. The water is warm, it's crystal clear, and it rivals some spots that I've been to in the Caribbean.
Totally.
It's truly one of my favorite places here in mainland Spain, or peninsular Spain, as they say. Anyway, we are happy to be here and joining the cadre of YouTubers who have moved to Spain or elsewhere in Europe and are sharing their stories. And we're very inspired by all of you. So, following up on from part one of our video, we left Malaga in May of 2024, very sadly, and we headed for Phoenix, Arizona. It felt sad to leave Spain, but we pressed on with our plan and began to get readjusted to life in the US. We rented a nice townhouse in Phoenix, and it was nice, but unfortunately, our expectations of what our life was going to look like in the US did not turn out to be the reality. I lost my job 2 months, just 2 months after returning to the US. I lost my job of nearly 15 years due to corporate downsizing, and I was very sad about it. Um, I was devastated. And we had gone back to the US with a plan that we would both have a well paying full time job. And while we were in Malaga, Brian had gotten a job offer for a job in Scottsdale. And the offer ended up getting canceled before we even left Malaga. And talk about bad luck. To add to the bad luck, one of our cats during our last month in Malaga broke his foot and needed surgery. The timing couldn't have been awful, that poor little guy. But like I said, we forged ahead with the plan to go to Phoenix and thinking that at least I would have my job and Brian would eventually get another job. And he indeed went through quite an odyssey in 2024 trying to find a job in his field, applying for over 700 jobs,
700.
over, not exaggerating. This is the software engineering management field, but luckily he finally ended up securing a job in Scottsdale.
I did. And at first and for a little while, it really did feel good to be back in the US, where I was, of course, easily able to communicate with everyone in English. Although we did experience that reverse culture shock that everyone talks about on YouTube. If you've seen those, you know what we're talking
Mhm.
about. For example, for us to have entertainment, we would go to Costco instead of
Hmm.
going to live musicals on the street or fiestas. That was our life.
Yeah.
Jessica, even though it was sad that she lost her position, she was kind of enjoying her forced sabbatical while I was working well over 40 hours back to the normal US grind.
We also had to get used to being car centric again.
Definitely.
Uh, so in September of 24, when we were living in Arizona, we decided to renew our NLV, our non lucrative visa, just in case. Wink, wink.
It
And
was. It was a backup plan.
the world is just so unpredictable, and we definitely left our hearts in Spain, so we figured, why not? The worst they can say is no, and it's definitely easier to renew and stay in the system than having to start all over again from a consulate within the US. We already had the Spanish digital certificate, the Certificado Digital, which allows you to do various bureaucratic processes online. We still had our empadronamiento, our padrón as they call it, and we had been paying for our Spanish mobile numbers with Vodafone all along, and we even kept our Spanish bank account open with BBVA. We also decided to pay for private health insurance again with Adeslas, as it is a major requirement to have the non lucrative visa. And we still met all the financial requirements of the NLV based on our savings. We decided to do the renewal submission ourselves online, of course, worried that something was going to go wrong. We had paid a Gestor the first time of first renewal back in 2022. But looking back, we should have just saved the money and done it ourselves, like we've done everything ourselves with all the Spanish bureaucratic processes. Um, I was more or less able to copy the way the documents were done with the 2022 renewal, and also consulted some YouTube videos, and we submitted everything and crossed our fingers and waited to see what would happen.
We ended up getting approved. We did have some snags during the process. First, with my renewal application, strangely, Jessica's didn't have the same snags because we both submitted all the same documents in the same way. Our funds were different funds in different banks, but both banks were in the United
Hmm.
States. So my renewal was attended to first, and they came back and said that because the bank's in the U.S., you needed to get it apostilled and
Notarized and
notarized and all of
apostilled.
that
Yeah.
stuff. Luckily, while I was working, Jessica was able to go to the
We lived in
Capitol.
the capital of Arizona in Phoenix, so I was
And
easily able to go to the Secretary of State office and get all that taken care of.
yeah,
Yeah.
and because of that, we were able to respond fairly quickly to their requests for additional information. And once they had it, it was approved pretty much within a day or
You got
two.
approved the next day.
Strangely, Jessica's didn't get approved for, I believe,
4 to
5
5
more
weeks, it just
weeks.
sat there and it was pending, and
Yep.
I didn't have to do any of the things that he had to do,
Nope.
and my bank was also in the US, so go figure.
We're not sure if that's because mine was first and they connected them somehow, or if it was just the person that was doing the work. So, as
Yeah, I
usual,
think it really all
very interesting.
depends on who's working that day. Um, at this point, we
Yep.
didn't know if we were going to move back to Spain, but we were thrilled to have the option. And we booked flights to go to Spain to complete the process in
Yep.
person. You have to go and do your fingerprints again and complete some more paperwork, pay another fee, small fee. So we secured the appointments first to do the toma de huellas, the fingerprints appointment at the police station, and then we booked the flights. It felt so good to be back in Spain again
Agreed.
together. So I had gone alone to Spain last July, 2024, for about 9 days and spent some time in Madrid and Menorca. I'd never been to Menorca and I wanted to have some beach time in a place that I had not yet been. I didn't want to go back to Malaga because it was just too soon. We had only been gone like maybe 2 months. I knew I was going to be sad. Um, it was going to feel sad and strange to be in Malaga again and not being a resident there. I just wasn't really ready to accept all that. So it might sound weird, but trust me, the Spain bug is real. And when you live here, you really understand how great it is. So also without Brian in Malaga with me for
Always working.
emotional support, I probably would have been I would have been sad and it probably would have been difficult. Anyway, the concert was in Madrid. I couldn't bear to miss it. It was Manuel Carrasco. If you know, you know. And I remember going to the airport for my flight to Spain and feeling kind of like I didn't want to go. Like, not that I didn't want to be in Spain, but I wasn't up for this long journey from the western part of the US all the way to Europe. But Brian knows me, and he said, "You will feel worse if you don't go to this concert." And he was right. I'm sure glad in the end that I went. I would have been really sad sitting in Arizona and missing that concert. So yeah, it was all for the right reasons. But anyway, January 2025, we go to Spain together, and it was our first time back. Brian's first time back since leaving. I wasn't sure if he was going to feel the same way about Spain as he did before, but lucky for us, lucky for me, he did, and we both felt like we were at home
We
again.
did,
It felt like as if we had never left, and
despite having to work.
yes, he was working while he was there. I began to follow some real estate pages on Facebook and caught on to the fact that you could get some really affordable properties if you're willing to move inland away from the coast. I imagined us buying one of these houses and living rent free and mortgage free. I knew we had a pretty low budget and wouldn't be able to get a Spanish mortgage due to lack of proper jobs. Just to be clear, as a foreigner, you can get a Spanish mortgage, but it is more complex and challenging, although not impossible. The idea of us having a home in Spain that was completely ours gave me such a feeling of security in this crazy world. In the US, housing prices for both renting or buying have gone completely out of control. Owning a home in the US again just frankly felt undesirable and a little bit like a financial prison. And Spain was offering us some options that the US could not, such as affordable housing and healthcare, two very important things. So in March, I went back to Spain by myself to check out this town called
Had to work.
Brute. and to see some of these houses in person. And we had never been to Urruti, but had been in some other nearby towns, such as Itnajar and Priego de Cordova. I was also able to go back to the police station in Fuengirola to pick up my new TIE card, my foreigner identity card. That was definitely exciting and productive. During those 3 days that I stayed in Rute, I saw 10 different houses, and there was one clear favorite.
Of course, we could have rented in Malaga or the surrounding areas again, and we talked about it. But ultimately, we wanted to make an investment this time and not just throw away our money on rent. Additionally, rent prices in Malaga, just like everywhere, honestly, have gotten a lot more expensive. And it's very difficult for foreigners to find rentals in Spain. The reason is that if you don't have a Spanish job contract, which a lot of us don't, it's going to be very challenging. Plus, we have 2 cats. So, needing something pet friendly just adds another layer of complexity. We just really didn't want to play the Malaga rental game. It is possible, but
Too
we just didn't
stressful.
want to deal with it.
Didn't want to do it.
So I guess you could say we chose the ultimate option and we just bought a house.
Mm.
We do plan to make a completely separate video about the house that we bought, about Rute in general, and why Jessica primarily did the research and we chose this place.
Mm. I did a lot of research and triangulations and put that into making our decision. So before I had come to Spain in March, we were getting a feel for our life in Arizona, and it was feeling like something that we didn't want for the long term. Seems like we're kind of jumping around with the story, but anyway, I still live Arizona. But if we were going to have to live in the U.S., we decided it just made more sense to live close to our family and friends in Pennsylvania. Life in Arizona or Pennsylvania, it's pretty much the same. I mean,
It is.
Arizona has much better
It
weather,
does.
but and also Brian wasn't feeling happy with his job. We'll leave it at that. Being East Coast people, I wasn't a fan of the long flights from the West Coast to Europe. I'm used to going to Newark or Philadelphia and being in Spain or another country in Europe in just one flight. So, also in Phoenix, there was a lot of homeless and drug people on the streets, and we saw them literally every day, not exaggerating. And it was a low light of the place, and it just kind of killed my soul every time I had to see that type of thing.
We did try to put a little bit of a plan in place to go back to Pennsylvania, plan A, plan B, but it did seem kind of difficult getting reestablished there. With the way the job market is in my field, I really didn't feel like going through the 700 job application process again. I just didn't. Although I did try and look around, at the end of the day, the decision was to just move forward with going back to Spain.
Also, my former employer had done even more rounds of layoffs, so the idea of me being able to work there again, had I gone back to Pennsylvania, was also seeming like it wasn't going to be possible. If we only had the option of going to Pennsylvania, of course, we would have just sucked it up and gone
Yep.
back and taken whatever kind of jobs we could get. Maybe live with my parents for a little bit until we could get all set up again. But knowing we still had the Spanish residency still active, it was very enticing to just go back.
Yep. Yeah. So
In
so
fact, it
we
seemed easier.
it did.
Yeah.
It did. So anyway, bottom line, we made the decision to buy here. We notified the sellers that let's go, let's get it done. And Jessica, while I was working, began to work on all of the things that you need to do that. Eventually, I gave my notice at work, and I stopped working in May. And we started putting our plans together to move back to
That's Spain
Spain.
again. So we worked on shutting down our life in Phoenix, selling and donating more items. Again, this all started feeling like deja vu. And honestly, I was feeling just really very tired and thought, I can't believe we're doing this again. But we pressed on because we knew it felt right in our hearts to do this. We narrowed down our cherished possessions into 8 boxes,
From 16 originally.
shipped them back to Pennsylvania to my parents' house to stay while we figure out really what we're doing long term. We fit the rest of our belongings and our 2 cats into our car, and we embarked on an 8-day road trip from Arizona to Pennsylvania, making sure to stop and see some bucket list items in New Mexico on the way. We stopped at White Sands National Park and Carlsbad Caverns National Park, both amazing, as well as making sure to stop in Santa Fe. During this 8-day road trip, we had about 6 different accommodations. The cats did great at every stop. They were always very brave. We are so proud of them. They're real troopers.
They are. We then spent about 5 fun-filled weeks in Pennsylvania with our beloved family and friends before once again flying off to Spain with our 2 cats in tow. We took advantage of that wonderful nonstop summer flight that exists from Newark to Malaga.
Awesome.
We had 4 large suitcases, 2 small carry-on suitcases, 2 backpacks, 2 cats, and my Spanish guitar. Upon arriving in Malaga, we had reserved a large van, which helped. In addition to all the suitcases I just mentioned, we also had to stop at our good friend's house and pick up stuff that Jessica had ordered online, like the litter box and things like that for the cats. Jessica wanted a certain type of litter box and scratching post for the cats, and we just, we didn't want to have to go to any stores after traveling all day.
All night. It was
All
an
night.
all-night flight. No
Yeah.
sleep.
So the day after we get to Spain, we land and we go and pick up my TIE card.
Yeah, we had an
And
appointment for him at the police station.
had it all planned out, and it was there. I was probably sitting there for, I don't know, didn't know how
Probably
many months.
since early to mid-March, and
Yeah.
we had a little bit of suspense, wondering was that card really going to be there.
It was,
And
thank goodness.
It felt great and amazing for us to both have our new current TIE cards on hand. We stayed at a pet-friendly Airbnb in Lucena, which is about 25 minutes from Rute, and we were able to park the cats there and take care of everything we needed to do for the house purchase, such as going to the bank to get the cashier's checks, going to the notary to sign for the house and receive the copy of the deed. Then we had a few days of cleaning the house, getting utilities and internet hooked up, cat proofing the windows for our indoor only cats, getting rid of some of the items that they left in the house that we didn't need. And then we were finally able to move in and start sleeping there about just 9 days after arriving in Spain.
And now we're here. We're homeowners in Rute, and it feels honestly surreal. We have zero regrets about buying this house. We feel comfortable, peaceful, and honestly at home. The house we bought was in livable condition. It's not in ruins or needing a total reform or anything like that. It does need some basic cosmetic work, which we're going to be doing over the next couple of weeks, primarily painting. But there's some other things I'd like to do around here now that it's my place.
And that's why we're recording outside in the patio, because the interior walls are just an awful color. It's really bad. I am sure tired of moving. I hope we can stay put for a while. I still can't say that Spain and this house will be our forever house. Of course, we would love it to be. But if we have to return to the US for some reason, we could at least keep this house here in Rute for vacations or a retirement. This world is just too unpredictable. And next year, in the later part of 2026, we will be dealing with immigration again. And I surely hope we have a long-term path forward in Spain. But we're not going to worry about that right now too much. Going to try at least.
Yeah, we're going to enjoy the present and be happy about being back here again. I often have to say to Jessica, pinch me, because I feel like I'm dreaming.
And I have to say it too. We've had several of those pinch me moments. Yeah.
So this concludes our story and our introduction. We hope you enjoyed it and maybe even felt inspired by it. It's a little wonky, but we made it a reality. We made it happen. And honestly, we're just normal, everyday people. We're not super wealthy.
Not at all. Not in the least.
But, if there's a will, there's a way, and you can make it work. If you really put a plan in place, you do what you need to do. Please like the video and subscribe if you haven't already. We will be providing many more videos to come about Spain, moving here,
or
traveling
just traveling
here,
to Spain.
all sorts of things. So
we hope you follow along, and hasta la próxima.